In this first video, what we're going to do is just kind of go over the layout of Unreal, just take it from the very start, and then in subsequent videos we're going to go over events and the kind of line graph and things like that there, which is going to kind of carry on from what we were doing in lectures. So just to get it started, I'm going to introduce the UI layout in Unreal, and then we'll start making some blueprints and things like that. So yeah, this is what I would say is probably called the level editor layout. It's like the main editor within Unreal. It's what boots up when you first open it up, the engine. And this is where you can kind of manipulate the level that you're working on, and also open up assets that you might want to edit and things like that. So on the top right, what you'll notice is we've got what's called the World Outliner. And this here basically just shows you all the objects and elements that make up your level. So anything that you add into this should appear in the World Outliner. It's always a good idea to name whatever assets that you create or import appropriately, because this can get kind of hectic, and if you're not naming things correctly, it might be hard to find them. So just bear that in mind. You can search up here as well. So if you've got thousands of objects in a scene, it might be hard to find them, but you can kind of search for it up here too. If you want to put things into folders to make it easier to manage all these files, pretty simple. Just grab, I'm holding shift here to grab this row of elements, and then I just hit the plus folder button, and I can call this, okay, this is just the arch elements or something like that there. And then I can kind of hide that away. It makes it a bit visually cleaner. And then you can drag and drop things into that as well if you wish. In the bottom here is the details panel. So this here panel here basically showcases and shows off what details each object you have selected. So like if it's a light, it will show off the intensity and the color and the radius that you can change the light. You can change its location from here, its rotation, scale. These objects that are already in the level are blueprints, which again we're going to cover, and I've got some kind of like public variables that you can manipulate to make them look a bit different from each other as well. So quite handy to have, and it allows you to basically change attributes for whatever object that you got selected, so it is context sensitive. If you select a blueprint and it's made up of multiple components, and again I'm going to go over blueprints in a bit, you can drag down this box here and you can see what components make up that blueprint. Okay, so you can select the blueprint itself here in the top one, or you can go to its individual components. Okay, so you can see that this here blueprint is made up of two components. It's got a scene root and it's got a mesh, and then I could go in and change that mesh if I wanted to, or whatever material that it's using if it's going to simulate physics. So I can change individual components of an object as well. In the bottom section here we've got the content browser. So this is basically an area that houses all your folders and all your assets that you can use in your levels for Unreal. The project that we're working on comes with a series of folders. In the blockout, it's got all these different shapes that you can use to kind of block out levels. In the blueprints, it's got our character one, and it doesn't have a light one. That's the one we're going to make today. And then it's got a few other ones like different maps in here, which I'll be going over in different lessons, to do with like lighting and things like that there. It's got different materials, particle effects, different weapons that we can use. And then like the mannequin as well that we'll probably be using for AI. Okay, so all these, I wouldn't say all of them, most of these objects in here you can just drag and drop into the scene. So let's see, if I go to shapes here, I'll go to door, and I've got a door, I can just drag this in. Okay, and if it's a blueprint or a 3D model or whatever, we call this an instance of whatever class or object this is in our content browser. So this here doorway 200 320 21 is a class of a doorway, and then we drag it in. That's what we call an instance. we'll kind of cover that again. Another thing is, again, you can search for content here. You can filter by what type you want to see. Just remember that if you do and you're not finding whatever asset, then later on to X out of like whatever search content or whatever filters that you've put on. In here as well, we've got the save all button. So basically this is where you save. You don't use this one up here. This just saves the level. This here one saves the level and whatever assets you've manipulated or edited. So it's really important that you remember that when you hit save, it's not saving everything. Hit save all, it's far better. And then this is where we can add or import new assets. Okay, so we can do it here. Okay, we got this folder, or we can right click somewhere where it's empty and we've got this folder where we can make a new blueprint, a new level, material, particle, or all these different other assets in here, which will be covered throughout the module. Then on the left hand side, we've got place actors. So this here is where we can add in kind of generic things like point lights, player starts, just generic shapes like cubes and things like that. Again, it's all drag and drop into your scene. Lights, cinematics, visual effects, geometry, volumes, all classes. Not going to go through everything, but there's just generic things in here that you can use. There's also a recently placed one. So if you placed in an object from your asset browser or in here, you can go up here and that will show what your kind of history was. Then the top toolbar, there's a few big buttons up here. We're not going to go through all of them. We've got save current, which again just saves the level. Source control, so if this is you're working in a group, which you'll be doing the second year, you're probably using some sort of source control. Different modes, we're not going to cover them all today, but you know, you've got landscape editing, foliage, brush editing, mesh painting. Then you go to the content, just opens up your content browser. Marketplace, so if you want to buy or download any free assets. Settings, which we'll be going into when we're looking at collisions and inputs and things like that. Blueprints, we're not going to go into too much, but this is where the level blueprint resides, and I'm going to show you in a later video why we shouldn't be using that. Cinematics, again, this will be for later things. Build, this is where we do our lighting or paths for AI, so we get to build those. Play button, so we can play, okay, and press escape, we get out of it. And then launch is basically if we're kind of launching on a device like an iOS device or Android device, we can kind of launch onto those devices rather than playing it in here as well. Okay, so yeah, that's the main layout of UE4. In the next video, what we're going to do is go over creating a blueprint class, talk about the different UI elements in the blueprint editor, and talk about like how the graph editor works and things like that.